Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Sunny's guest is Aidan Kehoe. Aiden is the founder and CEO of SKOUT CYBERSECURITY, where he continues to help his team realize its vision of making cybersecurity accessible to everyone. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kehoe. Over to you, Sunny.
Thank you, Todd. And Aiden, welcome to my podcast. I am super excited about our podcast today because I have a very special guest, very special partner with me today.
Sunny, thanks so much for having us. Really excited to have the conversation with you today as well. Always love spending time with you.
Thank you. And for viewers, Aiden is the co-founder and CEO and board member of SKOUT CYBERSECURITY, one of the best-in-class cybersecurity company in the channel. And we are so blessed and excited about the partnership we have with SKOUT. We started working from the last few months together, and I'm really excited about this strategic partnership we have with SKOUT, and there is just so much common. We were just talking about this a little bit earlier, the core values alignment and our business philosophy that we have, both companies. And my team is always talking about the core values alignment and how we approach business, how we serve our partners. And there is just so much common, and you rarely find a strategic partner where there is just that much alignment from the culture, the company's culture and their way of adding value to their partners. And for that reason, I am very excited about this partnership. And Aiden, so let's start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, SKOUT, and why did you start SKOUT?
Okay, thank you again, Sunny, and the feeling's 100% mutual. I think, my background is I had a risk management company where I was, working on difficult, complicated risks for businesses, and it ultimately got acquired by Willis Towers Watson. And a customer of mine had a data breach. And this is, many years ago now, and I focused in on that for a couple of years, looking at the sector, and discovered one single truth that is still playing out kind of today, and it's that there's an unbelievable shortage of security talent. And most people know about that, but they don't know what it means to them. And I wanted to create a company that focused on protecting small businesses. And as I spoke to small businesses, they were all serviced by these incredible entrepreneurs that were running MSPs and been in the community ever since. And just to touch on your opening a little bit, I think one of the hidden realities of both the MSP sector and of cybersecurity is that your culture and how you behave is really important. It's the only industry that I know of where you're delivering a service to your end user and somebody's trying to do something bad to that end user at the same time. So our values drive everything that we do. So our first core values, we put partners first, plain and simple. The second is that we do the right thing. And we always say that doing the right thing is easy to say and hard to do. The third, and that's why I love the sign on you have right behind you, is that you have to stay humble. Humility is such an important attribute in cybersecurity because you always don't know what's coming next, and you always have to know what to ask the last question. And this year, we added a value for the first time since we started, is that we're committed as a company to building a diverse and inclusive workforce. And so, really, we saw the need in the MSP sector that there's no single source of truth for cybersecurity for MSPs and their end user customers. And we built software to solve that problem. And thankfully, with partners like you, we're getting to work with some fantastic MSPs and super excited about that.
Yeah, thank you, Aiden. And this is exactly why there's just so much excitement when I talk to my leadership team, when I talk to my partners. We are taking the solution in a partnership, in a joint effort to serve the need of our MSP partners. And it's because of that, the approach that we are taking, the business approach, is really that servant leadership that we talk about. And because of that alignment, we together can add a lot more value to our partners. And when you talk about MSP partners, right, where the need is to make sure that the network security monitoring happens, email protection happens, log security monitoring happens, the endpoint protection happens. Office 365 log monitoring happens. And when we see that need of every single small business out there, that MSPs are the IT department for these small businesses, and you cover all these different aspects of being that best-in-class cybersecurity solution. And okay, so I'm going to talk about the trends. So what are some of the trends you see in the cybersecurity space, especially when we are talking in the context of small businesses?
Yeah, well, I think the I'm going to talk about the three big problems that's affecting small businesses today. Have really stayed the same before COVID, and post-COVID have really accelerated. One is business email compromise. I don't think there's a CEO out there that hasn't gotten that email, that fake email gone to a CFO trying to wire money. So it's a very serious problem, and you see it everywhere. Second is ransomware. Ransomware, there's not an MSP that hasn't dealt with one of his customers suffering with ransomware. And third is compliance and regulations that all of the end users that service these businesses now have to comply. So when we have conversations with MSPs and their customers about cybersecurity, it's less about the specifics of the bits and bytes that go behind it, more about the problems that those customers are facing. In addition to that, you see, two massive trends that got accelerated with COVID were cloud adoption and now work from anywhere being the new normal. So I don't think we're going to go back to a world where everyone's back in the office. I think we're going to live in a work from anywhere environment where the office will come back in some way, shape, or form. And the combination of cloud and work from home present really difficult challenges for MSPs and businesses because the small business footprint has now gotten so much bigger, more difficult to secure. So we're focused on making sure that those three, business email compromise, ransomware, and regulations, are all addressed in our platform while getting people prepared for the inevitable cloud adoption and work from anywhere that exists. And I think, one thing I want to make sure every MSP who's listening or watching today knows is that, like every problem, you got to get the basics right. So we say that if you can get 80% of your security for 20% of your budget, you will do really, really well. And that's what we focused on when we built this solution for MSPs.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's just so much going on in this cyber landscape, and small businesses are challenged with their security posture, especially in the new norm, where almost everyone is working from home, and that opens up a lot more entry points, and it makes the overall situation, which is already complex, a lot more complex, that you have like people working from home and logging in from home.
Yeah.
So the entire landscape has changed overnight during this COVID pandemic, and making it a lot more challenging. And as you said, in this challenging world that we live in, from the cybersecurity perspective, if we can focus on the 80%, then 20% effort, 20% focus is going to address your 80% of the problems. So what you just mentioned is so useful, so helpful. Sometimes we try to kind of tackle everything, and then we end up tackling nothing. So if you can be focused on the foundation, foundational posture that you need, that at least you can cover 80% of your problems, right?
Yeah, and it's not dissimilar to the pandemic, Sonny, like when you had, everybody needs to wash your hands, wear a mask, and do best practices. But once you get everybody doing best practices, then the overall health of everybody gets better. I think security is the same. I think, getting basic email protection in there, great endpoint protection in there. And I think the thing that most people struggle with is they don't really have a place to call if they have a problem. So everyone said, like, who are you going to call if you have a problem? Not dissimilar to healthcare. You go into that emergency services room to get some help. That's where you go. I think making sure people are thinking about their partnerships, like you've done such a great job, and we're so thorough in your evaluation of having a partner, because you want to make sure all of your MSPs have somewhere to call if they have a problem. So I think if the MSP community and we all work together to make sure that we have as much centralized resources that we can share, we can take on this problem together.
Absolutely. And we have gone through a lot of due diligence, and it is important who you partner up with, because there's so much going on again in the cybersecurity space. There's a bigger opportunity, and there are a lot of lousy partners out there where they think they are the cybersecurity experts, but when you kind of talk to them, take a deep dive into their solution and other things, you're like, you're not even covering the basics.
Yeah.
And yeah, so choosing the right partner is so important. Which solution you take and adopt and help your small business customers adopt is very important for MSPs. Now, my next question to you, Aiden, is what's at risk if MSPs are not cyber-first companies? What's at risk?
Well, I think what we're going to see happen over the next 1 to 3 to 5 years is all MSPs are going to have to become cyber companies of some kind. If you're an MSP, your end user has a ransomware, has a data breach, they're going to move to another MSP. So we believe that these MSPs need to become cyber first. If they don't do that, their competitive gap is just going to grow. The larger companies who adopt a cyber first mentality are going to really start gobbling up the competition, and it's going to be more difficult for you to retain that monthly recurring revenue that you have with your customers, because cybersecurity is going to be considered table stakes. The second thing is, unless you become a cyber first company, you're more likely to have a problem yourself. So a security problem yourself. We've seen in the last 60 days, a number of MSPs reach out to us who unfortunately didn't make the investment that needed, and then they had hundreds of customers all locked up with a problem in the same day, and everybody in the community has heard these stories. So we want to make sure that we can help those businesses protect themselves in a really affordable way, because it's different when someone's buying it for themselves versus trying to get someone to purchase that solution for an end user. So those would be the gaps that we see happening. The competitive differentiation is going to be difficult, but more importantly, that security piece is going to be a real big challenge to hold on to, for yourself, because the attack landscape, like I mentioned earlier, is going to become a bigger challenge.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And while I see that our MSP partners are a lot more intentional about cyber first approach, but it's sometimes mind-boggling to see that there are so many small businesses and MSPs where they are still not very, very focused on being or taking cybersecurity very seriously. But there are a lot of partners. The overall education is a lot more than just a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago. But as you said, it's a matter of survival for a small business, and it's a matter of survival for the MSP partner. Mm-hmm. If you don't pay attention right now and evolve and make your MSP cyber first, it's the business liability for yourself and liability that you have because you are the technology solution provider for your customers. And brand reputation, you only get it once. The reputation that you have, there is no second chance. Yeah. And having that, that just to stay in business, and we normally talk about Maslow hierarchy of needs, and your survival, your existence is the foundation. So if you are one of the MSPs and technology solution provider, it's your responsibility. It's your moral responsibility to make sure that you have a great partner and to protect your business and business of those small businesses where you are responsible to be their technology solution provider and protect their information and protect them from what's happening in the cyber world. Now, my next question is, what's possible if MSPs are cyber first companies? What are their opportunities? What are the possibilities?
I think it's tremendous. I think, if I own an MSP today, I would take the following approach. One is I would be protecting my customers, but that revenue that I'm bringing in is worth so much more from an enterprise value standpoint that other revenue is. So when you look at how investors look at businesses, security revenue is valued much higher. The second thing is profitability. Profitability goes up. You're starting a new line of business, a new way for you to make extra money that drops straight to the bottom line, because if you use the right partner, you don't really take on any incremental costs. So it's very, very high margin for the MSPs. And lastly is you build a protective moat around against your competitors who are all going to be kind of targeting that same end user customers, doing security assessments from third parties. And you want to make sure that infrastructure is in place. And the last thing I'd say is you set yourself up for the day if you have an emergency and you need to make a phone call to somebody, that you have that partner locked in. So it's I think, cyber a few years ago was this, very difficult thing to make tangible. I think all MSPs now are really seeing that this is the future, and because their customers are demanding it. And if you listen to your customers, you can't really go too far wrong. And that's what we've been doing. And we're very proud and excited to be able to power that change for the community.
Yeah, thank you. And as you said, MSPs will grow faster and be more profitable than the ones who don't pay attention to cyber opportunities. Mm-hmm. And especially for entrepreneurs, the only person who is going to get up in the morning and look at the value that you're creating for the company is the entrepreneur, is the business owner.
That's right.
So there is no one getting out there, your revenue leader, to your service leader, to any leader out there, because the number one job of an entrepreneur is to make sure that what you are creating as an institution is the value creation, right? And that comes from what's future. So cybersecurity revenue dollars have a lot more value than any other revenue dollars. And for entrepreneurs, it is so critical for you to make sure that if you really want to make a difference in terms of value creation, you focus on the right revenue. And for MSPs, the right revenue is the cybersecurity revenue that they can create to build their companies, where they're worth a lot more than a typical technology solution provider with that revenue. And if it's more profitable, EBITDA is the number one thing, right? If you have $100 million revenue with no EBITDA, it doesn't matter, right? And I'm going through recently a book called $Billion Loser. Mm-hmm. There are people, they're entrepreneurs where they create billion-dollar companies with no bottom line, and they're calling them billion-dollar losers. It's better to have low revenue and have a healthy EBITDA, which can come from cybersecurity solutions-based revenue. And last question, Aiden, that I have for you. There's so many takeaways from this podcast. And if there is, I want to share that one, like the ultimate takeaway. What is the greatest lesson you have learned as a cybersecurity leader that you want to share with our MSP entrepreneurs?
It's a great question. Really simple answer. If you have a cyber problem, or when you have a cyber problem, you better have one phone number that you're going to call to help you solve it. And I think that is if you were to do one thing every day, make sure that you have one phone number to call for all your cyber needs. That would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, so that one number.
One number, one partner. You better be able to call somebody who knows what they're doing, because the day you have a problem is not the day to start looking.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience. And thank you for being our strategic partner.
I really appreciate it, Sonny, and same to you. Excited for our future together.
Thank you, Sonny. Thank you, Aiden. And, Aiden, one last question. If somebody wants to get started down that path of becoming an MSSP and adding that cyber offering for their end users, what's the best way to get started?
I would go on to IT by Design's website, itbd.net. And you'll get the best of service from them. And that would be how I would do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to you, the viewer, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you took a nugget or two away from this conversation. And if you did, please be sure to click that like, share, and subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.